honored to be here today to talk about how health and park partnerships create equitable built environments. And so what I wanted to do today is kind of give you a quick overview of what we're going to do. So I'm going to do a quick overview of my organization and what we do. I will introduce our guest speakers, and during my presentation I'll kind of take you through a quick slide to kind of give you some visuals of what that looks like and how we partner. And then after all of that, we will go into question and answers and have a nice robust discussion together on built environment and what you've learned today, and maybe just create some nice dialogue, okay? Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Great. So good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you about the built environment and how health and wellness plays into that. The Trust for Public Land creates parks and protects land for people all across America. We do this through an equity lens, meaning we go into communities that are park poor, are having issues with climate, there are no trees. So we really focus on those communities, even though we work in rural environments, up in the national forest down to San Diego, a lot of water projects and so on. Now this is no small feat, and we know as an organization that what we do today will impact our tomorrow. And I think that is why the discussion right now is so robust around the built environment and how we can bring this from the trees down to your neighborhood, into the built environment, to get it closer to home. And what I spoke at the Greater Greener Conference, and it was on park equity. And what we were completing at that time was a park in Marin City. How many of you guys know where Marin City is? Great. A park in Sausalito. African American families came during the war and built ships. Many families. When they shut it down, families were they stayed in the community. So it was 40 years plus in this amazing, small, kind of isolated community off Marin County, which is one of the wealthiest communities we all know in the country. Marin City didn't have a park for 40 years. It's like, how do you have a community and there's an open space to play? You have to actually go across the freeway or get in your car to go up to the local YMCA, take a 15-minute drive. So, that means isolation. That means people literally were not able to have recreation close to home. What the Trust for Public Land did, probably 15 years ago, all the land where the GGNRA, which is the Golden Gate Recreational Organization, we protected all the land above Marin City. Okay, so they had this beautiful outdoor space, mountains, and it was a gate closing it off. So families from Marin City couldn't get up through the gate. So we came in as an organization, and we believe in a beginning, a middle, and an end of any kind of project. Meaning, our beginning is we work with the community. What do you want to see in your park? What are some of the issues going on in your community? We work with the Department of Public Health. What are the health issues? Asthma high, diabetes high, cancer rates high. How can the built environment play into supporting the public health of this community? This is the full collaboration, and what you see on this side, I wanted to highlight the fitness zones that are here, the connection to the natural environment. We got the gate taken down. There's a trail from here all the way up to the national resource now. And on that side over here is a soccer field. It's just an amazing space now in a community that was park poor, in a community that had health issues. We brought park prescriptions that you learned about to the community, so people are working out, they're doing yoga. So I'm saying all that to say that the Trust for Public Land is doing this all across the country. And we know that we don't just put in parks anymore. You don't just put in a park and you walk away. Because who's going to steward the park? How are we going to get new plants to put in? We believe in creating community green teams or community steward friends of Rocky Grant Park. So when we leave, we really don't leave. Because we continue to stay in that community and work with them to write small grants. We might have built money into our grant initially to give them like $20,000 over the next 5 years to keep the park up to par. We work with the Record Park Department. So this is a completed built environment in a community. This is what we do, and I wanted to show you that completely. So the Trust for Public Land has taken this vision across the country and is working with cities to plan. We plan it, to fund, a lot of public dollars, some private dollars, to protect. Sometimes we have to buy the land and give it back to the city because a lot of private ownership in some of these communities, right? And the plan, fund, protect, create. and we created this amazing space. And that's what we do with municipalities all over the country. You know, in these communities, Chicago, New York, Hell's Kitchen in New York, amazing schoolyards built in the built environment, and believe me, it decreases crime. People begin to know each other. It's this neighborliness that comes back. So we believe in park equity by working in park poor communities that do not have access. The Trust for Public Land believes that all people, to have an appreciation for the natural world, need to have it close to home. It's critical that they're able to walk out and experience nature in their backyard. There might be a garden over there as well. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today about this most important issue. I thought this picture was pretty compelling because a lot of the communities, you know, this could be right in your backyard, you know, water, you know, and kids and families don't have access to it. And what we need to do is create ways to do that in open space for communities. I firmly believe that the only way to bring greater health and wellness outcomes to populations of people is to ensure that they have quality parks and open spaces within a 10-minute walk of their home. How many of you right now can walk out of your door and go to a park within 10 minutes? Okay, how many of you don't? Okay, how many of you when you grew up, now I'm gonna raise my hand to that one. How many of you when you grew up had the access? Wow, you guys are all fortunate. I didn't. I grew up in Baby Hunters Point. My backyards were old buildings, alleys. I got a lot of proven nicks and bumps and everything and stitches, all to prove where my backyard was. But I know now that communities like Bayview, communities like the Tenderloin, communities like, you know, Viz Valley need open spaces for the kids to get out and play and experience nature, water play. That's a beautiful picture. I just had to show it to you. So why parks? Why parks? Anybody? Don't look at this. Why parks? Yes.
I was going to say all those reasons, but you said other things.
Anybody, just give me an answer.
Amazing multi-use spaces to meet so many different diverse needs, right? Mm-hmm. What you can put on the ground is incredible depending on how it's designed.
Right. There you go. What we've done as the Trust for Public Land is really broken it off into pieces. We know that at the core of our work, even though it's sitting up there in community, to me that's at the core of our work, and that's where equity sits. But environmental issues, climate, we're able to create an alley, take an alleyway, put a permeable surface in, put shading in it, create an opportunity for people to where it is really hot in environments like in LA and Watts. I could not believe when I was walking in Watts, there were no trees. And they did a study about some of the wealthier areas versus some of the areas that, you know, some of the poorer communities, and guess where the trees were? Yeah. Right. And so our goal is to make sure that our communities are resilient and they're sustainable. And climate, we can do some of the climate work right in our communities, and collect some of that water, so when it goes back into the bay or the ocean or wherever, it's recharged, it's clean, it's not over polluting. Economy, you know, I know they put a park in a certain area, new stores begin to come in, you know, the property values go up. You know, people start accessing the parks. Park investment. We just passed Measure B in San Francisco, really looking at how do we reinvest and take care of our parks. And so we'll talk about a little bit of that later. And the last thing is, it's just beautiful to go out and see trees and flowers and walk along the trail and take your dog. It's just beautiful. We forget that sometimes that, you know, built environments can be really beautiful to see and make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. That's the warm and fuzzy piece. So park playgrounds, greenways, and trails promote exercise, combating an epidemic of disease across this country related to inactivity. Nice parks provide gathering places that foster community. You know, we would always gather out, you know, the women used to always gather out in a little space in front of the house and talk and smoke back then, and drink coffee and all of that. You know, now people are isolated, so we need places for them to come out and experience. Again, parks fuel the local economy. They reduce greenhouse gas effects, you know, by encouraging people to live where they walk and bike and could take public transportation. And parks serve as a community hub, strengthening neighborliness and helping to reduce crime, okay? So parks are just smart. I remember when I first started working for the Trust for Public Land, I said, oh my God, these are smart parks. These are smart parks because they're doing they have so many benefits to what they do and help and support the community. Again, some of the things you see in parks, I don't consider them amenities. I was in a meeting the other day and she said, oh, we want this amenity. And I was like, no, these are necessities. To have a play area where kids, can play and play with water, fitness zones, trails, water play, gathering places, community gardens, experiencing the seeding and actually plants growing and eating the food that you grow. Sports play, soccer is big in San Francisco, soccer is big in the Bay Area. We need these places for kids to experience. Baseball and park prescriptions, I can't deny that this is one of the most incredible things. I remember sitting on a panel, on a committee with Dr. Curtis Chan way early on when we first got the CDC money in San Francisco. I'm like, how are we gonna do this? He brought a model from San Mateo County of what they were doing, and we brought this to the Y in Bayview where we were working, and now that program is so robust. Rec and Park was at the table with us all along the way. We created these amazing groups, and San Francisco is being well served right now. So I do want to just say a little bit about your park and Rec and Park because, with Measure B passing, they're rolling out these equity zone ideas. And if you look at a map of San Francisco, the southeast section of San Francisco really does have a lot of areas that have high health concerns. Their asthma's high, again, cancer is high. And so they're looking at this like barometer of 7, and one of those 7 I just want to talk about is asthma. High in these areas. And so what they've created is equity zones. So right side like 5 minutes outside of the equity zone, there's going to be a quality park in every one of these communities. And so they feel that it's going to help bring equity and access to San Francisco's most park-poor communities. Even though San Francisco rated number 5 on the park score from the Center of Park Excellence, there are still communities that need support in San Francisco, and they are so committed as a partner. They work with anyone that can help move this mission of bringing quality parks throughout San Francisco. And I know that underneath all of this is health. Really to get people to access communities so they can get healthy. And I think the day of people sitting in their homes and being afraid to go out because to their local park is going to be over. Next 10 years it's going to be over. Because people are going to understand what it means to be in spaces and places that are conducive to your health. So I got one story I want to tell you is, I remember my mom had 6 kids, grew up in Bayview. She would get us up really early on a Saturday morning, and we were all pissed, of course. This is our Saturday, we in school our week, and we're walking, back then there was 1 or 2 buses. And so she would get on to school. She would get us on 4 buses to get us over to the Presidio. I kid you not, 4 buses. And I remember being in the Marina Green one day. We were all playing with this frisbee, tear off the plastic on the frisbee, the kites, and get them up there, and they worked, sometimes they didn't. And you had the frisbee, and we're just doing kids play. And I remember at 8 years old, I remember looking over to her, and she was sitting under a tree with a book. And I said to myself, at that age, this stayed with me, I kid you not, my whole career, my whole life. I said, this is as much for her as she knew that we needed this. I knew that was what she needed, to be sitting, relaxing, and she read books all the time. And so I knew back then that the spirit, mind, and body thing was important. Somehow I ended up in the Y for 14 years, and now I'm at the Trust of Public Land. And so it somehow stayed with me. So the environment, the built environment is so important to our spirit, mind, and body. And I just want to say that as I close and begin to introduce our panelists that those stories that you have, why nature, have nature touched you today? Make sure you share this with your kids and get out. And I know everybody in this room, I'm preaching to the choir, because San Francisco people, we know how to get out and have access. But if you have a neighbor that hasn't gotten out in a while or doesn't know how to get to the local park, speak to her, talk to somebody who might not have access. And even if they got to get on 4 buses, try to help figure that out with them. It's important to get people out into nature. So thank you. And I want to welcome our panelists. So, Ms. Brytanee Brown is a community partner at Transform, a nonprofit transportation advocacy organization that combines high-quality policy analysis with coalition building. Transform promotes walkable communities with excellent transportation choices, to connect people of all incomes to opportunity, to keep California affordable, and to help solve our climate crisis. I'm really interested in learning more about that. She leads on shared mobility, outreach, and education campaigns. She is an urban planning professional, passionate about engaging community in the development of places and programs that support the creation of wealth for all residents. Prior to Transform, Brytanee worked as a project manager at the Tenderloin Economic Development Project of San Francisco. I know that very well. She has a background in economics and community development with a particular focus on developing social impact strategies for food enterprises. Brytanee holds a Master's of Arts in Urban Planning from Tufts University and a Bachelor's of Art in African American Studies with a minor in City Planning and Regional Development from the University of, Berkeley University. Cal, all right? Brytanee is originally from Berkeley, California. Welcome. Philip McCoy is currently the Superintendent of Recreation Services for the Greater Vallejo Recreation District. He has over 25 years, I would say 30 years of experience working as a recreation supervisor from Sacramento to Half Moon Bay. Philip holds a bachelor's degree in Parks and Recreation Administration and a master's in Business Administration. He has many affiliations, Leadership Vallejo Alumni, California Parks and Rec Society, California Special Districts Association member, National Recreation and Parks Association member. He is been married for 12 years. He has 2 sons and a wonderful family, and is a first-generation Californian. Welcome, Philip. So with that said, I'm going to go back to Brytanee and let her do her thing.
As Gina mentioned earlier, I work at Transform. I work on our shared mobility outreach efforts. And when we say shared mobility, we're thinking about bike share and car share. And so the City of Oakland is going to be rolling out a bike share system. City of Oakland, along with Emeryville, Berkeley, and San Francisco, so the Bay Area bike share, will be launching very shortly. And nonprofit orgs like Transform and cities and agencies are trying to figure out how we're going to plan these so that they're not just for tourists, but they're for people who live in the communities to be able to access them for their jobs, for their childcare needs, for their groceries, for whatever. We want to make sure that the bike share system that rolls out is going to be just like AC Transit. You get off and you get on and you say, okay, well, I don't want to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I see this bike, I want to rent it, and I'm just going to go up the street and I'm going to put it back in the pod. So I don't know, has anybody ever used bike share in other cities like Philadelphia or, okay, yeah, so we'll have that soon enough, and we're working with Ford. Ford is our sponsor, and they'll be helping us roll that program out. So that's one of the programs that I'm working on right now, and then the other program is car share, and that's particular to Oakland. Right now we are launching. The City of Oakland is trying to figure out how to make car share more equitable. So car share companies like Zipcar, your Karma, City Car Share, when you see them, they're usually and I'm thinking particularly about Oakland, when you see them, they're usually in Rockridge or downtown Oakland. Yeah. And they're not always in East Oakland, and they're not always in West Oakland. And I'm sorry, I'm locally focused right now, so I'm sorry folks don't really know about Oakland, but basically East Oakland and West Oakland, there are predominantly Latino and African American communities. They're racially diverse, so you do have Vietnamese folks, you have Chinese folks that live there, lower income neighborhood, and you don't have a lot of access to grocery stores. I wouldn't push back on the parks. There's a lot of parks and recreation in East Oakland and West Oakland, but it is very residential and there's not a lot of commercial corridors. And so with that, the car shares have concentrated themselves mainly in North Oakland and downtown Oakland. And so with this car share program, we're hoping to expand the car share further out into East Oakland and further out into West Oakland. And so that's kind of the breadth of the work that I do. That's my role on a day-to-day is bike share, thinking about bike share and car share. Bike share throughout the Bay Area, and then car share and bike share in Oakland. I would say Transform as an organization, we think about transportation and what that means. Because transportation on the surface is the movement of goods and services and people. And so that's very broad, and that can mean a lot of things. That can mean walking, that can mean biking, that can mean a car, that can mean a bus. So it's a lot of, it's a huge breadth. But what we're focused on in that transportation conversation is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so if we're focused on that, we're obviously not going to push single occupancy vehicles. So we're going to want to encourage people to car share, to carpool, to walk more and to bike more. But that's easier said than done, because now we get into this challenge, right, that we face when we talk about our neighborhoods. And so for some communities, it's much easier to promote walkability, right? And like, oh, let's walk. It's better for us. It's healthier for us. But it doesn't work like that for everybody for a number of reasons. And what you mentioned, Gina, earlier, I live in East Oakland. It's very hot. And it's very hot because it's inland, and it's also very hot because some streets don't have trees. And so it's hot and there's no tree canopy. And so to tell somebody to walk in that heat is unfair, right? And so there's these conversations that we need to have when we talk about walkability, sustainability, climate change, because we're thinking about the folks who are most vulnerably impacted, right? When we think about climate change and we think about environmental injustice, 1 in 5 children in West Oakland have asthma, right? And so when we think about the ways in which we make communities better, we also have to realize that the people that we are there's a certain behavior change, right, that has to happen when we're talking about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and not driving as much. Those are all behavior changes, but we do have to think about our privilege in that, right? So as we promote walkability and sustainability, also thinking about community and our impact. So that's kind of the breadth of the work that Transform does, is think about transportation and climate change. And then I'm focused specifically on bike share and car share. And one of the things that I'm really excited about right now is our sessions in Oakland, Oak Mob 101, we're calling it. The city of Oakland has contracted, yeah, right? The city of Oakland has—
I thought about that.
Yeah, right? The city of Oakland contracted us because they are trying to figure out what are people's feelings about shared mobility, right? Like, we're living in this really interesting— how am I doing on time? I'm close. Okay. We're living in this really interesting space around like gentrification and displacement, and we're thinking about shared anything as something that is kind of situated in technology, right? In our Ubers and our Airbnbs. And so to say that shared mobility piece it's very tricky. And so the city of Oakland is like, well, shared mobility, right? This car share, this bike share, this ride sourcing, like your Lyfts and your Ubers, these are ways to help people get around a lot better. Do we want to not talk about them because we're in this really sticky place around gentrification and displacement? We don't know. So that's what Oakland Mobility 101 is and is going to be. We'll be holding 2 sessions in East and West Oakland to talk to residents about how they're under their baseline perceptions of shared mobility, bike share and car share, and let them know this is what is rolling out, and what are your thoughts. And this is really just like a listening session for the city of Oakland, but I think it's really important to focus on this, and I kind of wanted to use this just because we're gonna have this, so it's also like a prep for me, and I want you all to like challenge me. These are really tough questions. Again, we're like within the context of displacement, and we're gonna talk to the community about shared mobility, right? It's like very tricky, and so yeah. So when we go out into the community, we're gonna be talking to folks about bike share, right? This is what's coming into the community. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings about this? Where do you want to see this bike share go? For car share, this is where car share is currently. This is the map. Where do you want to see? Is it in your community? Do you want to see it go here? Do you want to see it go there? And so those are the kinds of conversations that we'll be having. And this is a community engagement session, right? And so community engagement is really tricky because we are going into the community saying that this plan's already been baked, right? So we just want your feedback. We don't necessarily, the city of Oakland, I hope nobody from the city of Oakland is in here right now, but we're, thinking about transparency. We're going into the community and we're saying, this is that kind of education mobilization model that we talk about in community engagement. It's like, we've already in the back room, and there's some context, some historical context. We've already started to think about this, bike share and car share as like this good idea. Now we're gonna educate the community, and then we're gonna mobilize them, which is one way. But then there's also this collaborative model, right? Where you think about, okay, what are some of the priorities? What are some of the needs of this community? And how are different transportation systems gonna fit into that need? Is it increased AC transit service? Is it increased BART service? And so this session really is a way for us to provide some transparency. It's not perfect, right? Because the plan is already baked. Car share is going to expand, and bike share is going to come. So again, that whole inevitability piece, that's always tricky, and that we should always push back on. But really, the session is about transparency and engagement. And I think as I kind of wrap up and close up, as Gina was talking, I was thinking about parks and how transportation can kind of fit into this piece. I know that I was just at a community engagement workshop where the Californian endowment gathered together all these CBOs and folks from the city to talk about how do we engage the community. And there was somebody on the panel, and I'm sure he meant very well, but there was this park in Oakland. It's on San Pablo Avenue, 32nd and San Pablo. And if you all familiar with it, you know that there are elders, mostly African American elders, who gather there. And people didn't like the park because they thought, people were doing drugs there, or people were, selling drugs or drinking, and they closed the park down. And they told the community, well, it's going to be better because now there's going to be chess, and there's going to be a waterfall here, and there's going to be these different amenities, for lack of a better term. There's going to be all these cool things here, right? And so now, though, there's no elders who are there who are using the park the way they see fit. And so in transportation and housing, it's always important for the community to get involved and to determine what they see will fit their needs. As we determine what amenities are going to be in the park, one size does not fit all. And that's for transportation, that's for food access, that's anything that we do. Everybody has their own set of priorities. People have already determined what they need in their life, what's most precious and important to them. And as nonprofit folks, as public officials, we should have our agenda in our back pocket and then be prepared to listen to folks' priorities, get those priorities on the table, bring our agenda out, and try to see if there's some overlay and some interconnectedness. And so that's just one thing that I think about as we're talking about the development of things like parks and transit systems, that we really have to hold community key and listen to community needs.
Wow, thanks, Brittany. Great question. I don't know about you all, but it brought a lot up for me. And I know the word gentrification is thrown out there, and it's an important issue. And I know no one goes into any community with that in mind. I mean, maybe some people do, but the before, during, and after is really critical, that you engage the community before you begin to draw designs up. You ask them what they need. That those seniors should have been talked to before so they can be excited about what was to come. And that during is, provide jobs to some of the people in the community. We do that. We do training, and we'll hire people from the community to work in the park during construction. And then the after, people own the park. It's their park. And so that's the stewardship that happens after. So when we walk away, and the city walks away, and the construction is done, someone is stewarding that park, and they've already got programs and services going on. So that before, during, and after is pretty critical. And the Trust for Public Land does not do anything without that process. It's so important. And the last thing I want to say on the topic before we go to Philip is that, with corridors and transportation, we look at what's happened in Richmond with Iron Triangle and, freeways separating communities from the rest of the city. Transportation is a huge issue, and I know statewide they're really trying to figure out strategies how to de-isolate communities. And they're not going to knock down freeways, but create other access ways through trails and bike paths to get people out of those areas to feel like they're part of the whole. So these are all important topics. So with that said, I'm going to move on to Philip and let you talk about what you do.
Okay, thank you very much, Gina. I'm Philip McCoy with the Greater Vallejo Recreation District, and the Vallejo Recreation District is in Solano County, and it is a dependent park district. It's not operated by the city of Vallejo, but we have a board of directors that's appointed by 3 of the city council members and 2 of the Solano County supervisors. What we had as a goal to achieve was to increase the number of people attending parks. And we noticed that a lot of people attend parks, you build them, you open them up, they come. But they hit a certain age range. We weren't hitting a lot of the older community members, the seniors, and we found that a lot of them never go to a park through needs assessments and surveys. They could be living right across the street from a park and never bother to walk over. And we wanted to address the health and wellness needs. A lot of our programs, our parks, hit a lot of those areas. If you participate in any of our activities, more than likely you're going to be doing something healthy for your body and mind. And if you don't participate in any activity, but you visit a park, you're liable to walk, you're liable to sit and breathe fresh air. I liked what Gina Fromer mentioned about her mother, just feeling comfortable sitting in that park and realizing that's better than sitting inside the house, breathing stale air. So we had it as a goal to promote our recreational activities and our parks, but through addressing the health and wellness needs. And we found practically everything we did that. GVRD was invited to the Healthy Parks, Healthy People initiative a few years ago. How many people are familiar with HPHP? A lot of people, great. And we found that they were talking about the same stuff we were interested in doing, getting people out of the house and into the parks. And sometimes that can be difficult for certain populations, particularly the seniors who we were trying to address at that time. And the goal was to develop free programs for them to come out to the park. We designated it as first Saturday, and to do something, whether it would be sit in the park and just breathe, or if you wanted to be more active, we had walks, we had hikes, and we had information gathering. We did a lot of the things that we normally wouldn't do, and it was a free program. And they were set up during the summertime. Unfortunately, that first summer, even though we signed on to the HPHP MOU, we weren't able to get things established yet. So the next year, we did. And we found that no one was really interested. The attendance was very, very poor, little to none. And we determined that what we needed more was partnerships involvement. And we had already been partnering with health providers in the community, such as the Solano First Fives, the Vallejo Kaiser, and the Sutter Solano, who assisted us with some of our other activities, both financially, in kind, and in activity. And we told them about this, and they were interested. And we contacted the Solano County Public Health Department and found that they were one of the HPHP signers as well, and were very interested in what we were doing, and were happy to associate with us. In fact, they provided financial assistance for promoting our first Saturdays. And we assisted them with one of their activities. I believe it was Rethink Your Drink. And we wrote a support letter for a Healthy Solano CDC grant, which they were awarded, thankfully. And they started developing the partnerships to improve community health, or pitch. And we were invited to submit a project for a pitch grant, which was the water stations. And the pitch, the partnerships to improve community health were interested in several areas that they're involved with right now. They have a lot of sessions, training sessions to help you meet that goal. Ours was in the physical fitness area, and that's where the water stations apply. And we felt that if you provide more water stations in the park, more access to water, people would come and they would choose that area to walk, to hike, and they could get water and stay in the park a little bit longer. And so, let me move to the next slide. Okay, so we received the grant. It was $99,281, and we were able to purchase the water stations with that money. And the grant allowed us to purchase it, but it didn't cover the installation. Well, GVRD was having to pay those installation costs and any collateral costs for installing them. Unfortunately, we could only put it in the parks that have potable water. If it was a smaller park that didn't have potable water coming to it, then they didn't get it. We have about 35 parks, 14 parks have the water stations. Some got more than others. This is Blue Rock Springs Park, and that water station you're looking at now is specifically stationed there to take advantage of that walking path that's going through there. And that park is known for a lot of walkers, also picnickers. That's the same water station, but from a different shot, the opposite direction. As you can see to the left of it, there is a play lot, so mothers, grandparents can take their children and grandchildren down and walk or get water if they need it. So it's got close access to that. This shot is Dan Foley Park. It's one of our more active parks. This is the new sports field that we have installed there, and it's a multi-use field that caters to both soccer and softball. As you can see, the spectators standing there watching the soccer match, and there's a water station right there, and it's right adjacent to a path, and that path leads down and goes around the community center, and it goes the opposite direction over to the picnic areas. And this slide shows a water station. Seems like it's just out there by itself. Nobody's there with this water station. But if you notice, there's two picnic areas out there, and it's very convenient. Before that water station was put there, those people would have to haul in water or go somewhere else, find a restroom or something where there's water. Now it's right there. Plus, you can walk around there. So people walk through the park, they stop and fill up their water bottles and keep going. And this shot is that same water station taken from the opposite direction. And as you can see, one of the things that we specified in the water stations was the bottle filler. That's at the top of the column, and then the ADA bowl. So you can scoot right up to it. You can fill up your water bottle. All of the water bottles, water stations have filters in them that we change every 6 months or every year. I forgot which one. And it's a large filter, so the water tastes similar to what you're used to. It doesn't taste like it came just pumped out of the river or something. And this next shot, there were about 3 water stations that were put in Blue Rock Springs. And this is another section. You can see it's close to another picnic area, and there's a trail that goes right by it for walkers. So it's strategically placed so it can take full advantage of access to the water. This shot is of the waterfront at Mare Island. And to the left there, you can see the Straits of Mare Island there, and people walking right near the edge there. That's a nice walking path that's about 3.5 miles. and this is walked more than any area in Vallejo, actually. So there the water station is, and it's a short walk across the area there to the water station. That what you see on the right is the wall of our restroom. We actually have a park there called Independence Park, and you can use the restroom, you get some water, and then continue on your way. And it goes down past the ferry building and on to the bridge that goes over into Brytanee. This is another shot of that same water station, and as you can see, this one's a little different. It has a pet feature. So a lot of people walk their pets, the dogs, and so that when they get water, their dog can get a lot of water too, as well as the bottle filler and ADA.
Is it filtered too?
They're all filtered. So the water tastes good. I tried it. Tastes good. This is at North Vallejo Park, where we have 2 water stations placed. This is a large park. Those 2 of our maintenance workers who are making some adjustments. They may have just installed that one. And as you can see, there's a trail that meanders around that, so people walking through the park can have access to water. There's also a children's play lot just over the back of the shirt of the maintenance worker. And this is the second water station that's strategically located, again, by a path, close to a full-court basketball court there. And down from that, along the trail, you can just see our North Vallejo Community Center, which has been newly remodeled, both inside and outside. So if you know that community center, it doesn't look like it used to look. It's much, much better. So this is the list of all of the parks that receive water stations and the locations of where they are, the quantity of water stations. Some receive between 1 and 4, and the type of style. All of them have bottle fillers, as well as the ADA bowl, and then some have the pet bowl, and some are mounted to walls. So the steps we took to developing a district health initiative as a result of this, because this is where we were going, we hired Richard Houston of the Health Alliance Partners. And Richard came to us and said, what you need to promote this more are testimonials. And he has recorded several of our participants. He calls them exemplars. They talk about their joy of walking, their excitement in our recreation activities, and these are displayed on the Health Alliance website and has helped us promote the program a great deal. From that, we developed the slogan, Champions of Healthy Living, Active Lifestyles, which are on our flyers, in our activity guides. We also put in the class descriptions and activity descriptions a little something regarding the health and wellness benefits from taking that you'll get taking our particular class or activity. And as a result of that, we got a health initiative, and that's it. And if you want to learn more about this, you can go to the website, Health Alliance Partners.com, and we have a lot of our exemplars and parks on that site that has helped in promoting the programs. So what has come out of this? We have developed new partnerships, and that has greatly increased our programs. And some of them we have met while we attended meetings with the Solano County Public Health. For example, Gordon Kaiser is the owner of Activities Medicine, and he came to us and said he'd like to assist with some of our First Saturday parks. At this time, we're putting it on about one First Saturday a month, and after he brought in on Gordon Kaiser, that increased to 5 days a week. And he walks with the seniors and gets a lot of participation there. And the Solano County Supervisor, Aaron Hannigan, worked with him on developing walks in the parks on Fridays. And she was very instrumental in getting a $30,000 grant for her walking shoes. And so now, and they purchased about 500 of them. And so on Fridays, walking along with Supervisor Hannigan, you see all these smiling, active seniors with their blazing white athletic shoes, enjoying the walk. And they come there every Friday, they never miss. And then the more active ones walk with Jordan every day. He does 2 at the parks and 2 at the community center, and then 1 on first Friday at the Mare Island Park. Also, we partnered with the Solano Land Trust, who puts on activities in our parks. We have a park called McIntyre Ranch, and they own land such as the Sweat Ranch lands, and they titled one with Breaking a Sweat. And theirs are very active hikes. You need to be in shape. And they're walking on those rolling hills you see as you pass Vallejo and go down to Fairfield, all those rolling hills of the Sweatlands. And they put on about 2 a year now. And so we've got a lot of increased support from partners that we didn't have before, as well as ongoing support for this. And we thank the Solano Public Health for all of their input and interest in getting those water stations paid for. So that pretty much wraps it up, and I'm open for questions and comments.
Thank you, panelists. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Yes.
Hi. Thank you for sharing your experiences, especially with the water stations. I actually think it's really innovative. There was a study that came out a couple months ago that was the first national study of parks observation, and they found that there were greater increases of moderate to vigorous physical activity associated with walking loops, associated with fitness zones and outdoor gyms and other trail markers and things like that. And I was just curious, just kind of what, I mean, in my experience working with Parks and Recs, there's a lot of concern about budgets and how they can account for, building equipment. That's why we're talking about built environment. And so I was wondering about your experience kind of working with Parks and Recs or the recreation commissions and getting them to invest in things like that, and whether you have also kind of idea of how much different types of built environment projects would cost.
Thank you. That's a good question. We didn't have the $100,000 to buy these water stations, and we didn't realize how helpful they've been in parks. Now that we put them there, there's more access to water. And so they'll last a good 10 years, but we need to look at that down the road, sustainability, when they wear out, they're vandalized, to replace them, and to get water to those other 15 parks that we don't have a water station, so we can put water stations there to encourage more use of those parks. Budgets are tight. We compare the first Saturdays that we do and the partnered walks that we do with the Solano Land Trust, we don't charge a fee for it. Gordon Kaiser doesn't charge a fee for his either. And most park and recreation departments do charge a fee for their activities. But I know the HPHP organizers in park districts do not charge a fee for most of that. You get it from somewhere else. Fees are charged for other activities, for tax-supported organizations, so that covers it. The reason why we're doing this is we're trying to promote health and wellness, and we feel that is so important that although it doesn't cost a lot of money, it is a cost because we have to assign staff to it, and we had to install those water stations. But we think the benefit is worth the cost.
You have a question here in the room.
Brittany, I had a question for you regarding you were commenting on different parts of Oakland that don't have good amenities for shade. And I come from Colorado in the Denver metro area. We have a high prevalence of skin cancer and melanoma. And so one of the things that they started, that the city and the state were doing, was engaging in doing some kind of shade studies to really get a sense of the communities that were having those higher prevalence of cancer. But also, there's so many other benefits to having places that have shade structures, and even if you don't have the resources to put in trees and to maintain trees, to figure out other ways to provide that for people, because of so many things that people don't get to do if they're in those hot environments. Have you is the city doing anything about looking into that issue, or are they, is this even on their radar?
From the city side, I'm not, I don't really have much information on. I will say that there is a really, really awesome community-based organization, Urban Relief, and it's honey, it's like RELEAF. And so they spend a lot of time planting trees in East Oakland. And they have a strategic plan, and they plan to, they started kind of closer to the freeway, right, to kind of catch the carbon offset, but they're getting closer into International Boulevard. So they're a really good organization, and I'm sure that they have a relationship with the city of Oakland. So if you're interested, if anybody in the room is interested in tree canopy, they're a really good resource, Urban Relief.
I just want to add that we met with the mayor of Oakland to present our climate smart cities, and part of that was around cooling and absorbing. So the cooling part was to plant trees, and then working with any local organizations like Tree People in LA. Do they have anything up here that could plant 1,000 trees in the neighborhoods that have them? So we presented, she was really excited about it. She just came back from Paris with the climate summit. So there's a lot of brewing happening about it, and the Trust of Public Land is working closely with them on climate. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, Karen Slaughter, National Park Service. My background is in planning, and actually my internship at Transform. It used to be called TALC a long time ago for some folks. So my question is, you're going to be kind of on the front lines of this bike share, car share thing. And so my experience in doing bike and pedestrian planning, there's some skepticism that comes across when you're proposing new amenities like that. And new infrastructure, I've received comments, in my experience that people will say, black people don't bike. Who are you really building this for? Is this for the techies? Is this going to cause gentrification? Why aren't you out there stopping murders? All these other issues tend to come up. So I'm just curious as to what your strategy is going to be to sort of respond to those challenging, tough questions. When some of it is good, healthy skepticism, and sometimes it's unfounded. So I'm just curious how you plan on.
Yeah, that's funny because we usually think about housing. The murders one is a new one. Just as far as ways in which people are what things are gonna be thrown at. There's gonna be a lot of prioritization, and that's why I mentioned earlier about people's priorities, and everybody has their own priorities. Here we're talking about parks, and so that's a priority for folks in this room. For me and my job, right, it's transportation. We're going into the community, and there are community-based orgs that are working specifically on workforce and housing and first five, so making sure that our children are healthy. So everybody has their own set of priorities. I think the overarching theme is social justice and equity, and making sure that everybody has access to resources. And so that's kind of how I plan on framing it. And the bike share and car share isn't going to solve a lot. I will say that for the affordability and the gentrification displacement pieces, we know that it's very hard to stay in Oakland, and it's not affordable, right? And so the communities that we're talking to are housing and transportation burden, meaning that they're spending too much money on housing and transportation. And so bike share next to walking and owning your own bike is going to be one of the most affordable ways to move through the city. And so we're thinking that's one of the ways that we can push the lever on this, is to really push the affordability, and again, to connect to other. It's also a lifestyle change as well. You can be healthier by biking and walking and car sharing. And so it's very multi-layered, and I would say that I'm not going to come with too much of a framework, do as much as I can to provide the information and transparency, but really leaving it up to the community to shape the strategy for bike share and car share.
Right here, and then I'm gonna go back there.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. McCoy. I work for the National Park Service here, and I work heavily involved with the community engagement. And I'm always very curious, interested in finding more about the how the park and public land relate to or react to the social, issue that affecting the people we serve. So my question for you is that Vallejo is such an interesting area because that what I learned from the news is that because what happened in the housing issue in San Francisco, Vallejo become a really hot market for real estate. A lot of people move into Vallejo. So I'm very curious, as part from the recreational, as a part angle of reacting or responding to this influx of new residents to your neighborhood. What's this like for you? Do you have any kind of way to adjust that? Or for the local folks, do they have any reaction to the influx of new people like using their parkland now? So, as a community, it must be a very significant hit per se, and the negative part of it is positive side of it. So from the park and recreation area, your angle, I was wondering, how do you view from that? It's a very interesting social reaction, yeah.
Thank you. Vallejo is a very diverse community. I think it's 25% Black, 25% Hispanic, 25% Asian, and 25% Caucasian. It's a great ethnic diversity there. And, but we really don't have to tell them what to do. Some people just use our facilities. We have 4 community centers. We have Kings and Quinceañeras, we have birthday parties, we have all kinds of weddings. And ours is one of the cheapest in the Bay Area, by the way. We don't charge a lot of extra fees.
We charge us. It's you and us in Northern California.
Right, and they come from San Francisco, Oakland, all over.
I go to Vallejo Parks too, so. That's our last question, 32, time went by, so thank you. And my last thing to say is, do it for the health of it, right?